Hello everyone, welcome to biology class. This class we are going to see 12th standard botany chapter 4 principles and processes of biotechnology. In this part of the video we are going to see the advancements in modern biotechnology. The modern biotechnology embraces all the genetic manipulation, protoplasmic fusion techniques and the improvements made in the biotechnological processes. So, we will be discussing about all these techniques or the advancements in detail. First, to start with, we are going to see in this video about genetic engineering. Genetic engineering, otherwise called rDNA technology or recombinant DNA technology or gene cloning. It is a collective term and it includes different experimental protocols resulting in the modification and the transfer of DNA from one organism to another. So we are going to engineer the genes. That's why it is called genetic engineering. So it results in modification and transfer of DNA. The conventional recombination involves exchange of recombination of genes between homologous chromosomes during meiosis. The recombination which is carried out artificially using modern technology is known as recombinant DNA technology. Otherwise, it is also referred to as gene manipulation technique. So, this technique involves transfer of DNA coding for a specific gene from one organism to another organism. So, how it is achieved? So, it is achieved by using specific agents like vectors, or by introducing the DNA by using certain instruments like electroporation, gene gun, liposome mediated gene transfer, chemical mediated transfer and micro injection. First, let's discuss about the steps involved in recombinant DNA technology. So, it is a very important answer. Write in detail about the steps involved in recombinant DNA technology. The first step, we have to isolate the DNA fragment containing the gene of interest that needs to be cloned. Whatever the gene that we are going to clone, we have to isolate that particular or specific gene from the organism. So, this step is called isolation of DNA fragment. And the segment that you are going to take is of gene of interest. So, this is the first step. So, we are going to take the gene of interest. The generation of recombinant DNA, that is rDNA molecule. So, how you can achieve this rDNA molecule? So, by attaching the gene of interest into a carrier molecule. That carrier molecule here is a vector. So, this vector should have the capability of self-replication within the host cell. Self-replication means it should replicate of its own. So, here for that process, we are taking the plasmid as vector. So, you all know plasmids are nothing but extra chromosomal DNA of bacteria is referred to as plasmids. So, this is the bacterium. So, the bacterium has got its own DNA, that is the bacterial chromosome. In addition to this bacterial chromosome, it has got some extra DNA. So, that extra chromosomal DNA is referred to as the plasmid DNA. So, this plasmid is going to serve as a vector. So, this plasmid alone we are isolating and this plasmid is going to serve as a vector. And now we are going to integrate our gene of interest with the plasmid. And now this plasmid is referred to as recombinant DNA because this plasmid is containing our gene of interest. The third step, selection of the transformed host cell that is carrying the rDNA and allowing them to multiply, thereby multiplying the rDNA molecule. So, once the recombinant DNA is made, this recombinant DNA is inserted into a host bacterium and now this host bacterium is referred to as referred to contain this rDNA fragment, and you have to select the transformed host cell, whichever the cell that has got this vector that is rDNA, and we have to allow them to multiply. Okay. So multiply, thereby multiplying the rDNA molecule. So if the host is going to multiply, obviously the rDNA segment will also get multiplied along with the host. So after this multiplication, the entire process generates either a large amount of rDNA or a large amount of protein expressed by the insect. So what we want actually, if we want to derive some protein, for example, if we want to derive that particular protein, we can extract the particular substance from this rDNA molecule. Wherever vectors are not involved, the desired gene is multiplied by PCR technique. So PCR is nothing but a polymerase chain reaction. So it is a laboratory technique, and using this technique we can make millions of a particular region of DNA. Okay, so we can make a copies, million copies we can make of a particular region of DNA. So whenever we are not going to use vectors, or if we are not going to use, after selecting the desired gene, we can multiply the gene by using this PCR technique, polymerase chain reaction. And then the multiple copies are injected into the host cell protoplast, or it is shot into the host cell protoplast by shotgun method. Next, so to achieve this recombinant DNA technology or the genetic engineering process, we need certain vector molecule. So, which can serve as a vector molecule, and what are the enzymes that are involved for this process, we shall see in detail. So in order to generate the recombinant DNA molecule, certain basic tools are necessary. So those basic tools are nothing but the enzymes, vectors and host organisms. The most important enzymes required for the genetic engineering process are, first we are going to see about these enzymes. Okay, then we shall see about the vectors and host organism. So the first tool required for genetic engineering is the enzymes. So what are the enzymes that are very important for this genetic engineering process? So three importance are very much necessary for this process. Number one, restriction enzyme. Number two, DNA ligase. And number three, alkaline phosphatase. First, let's see about restriction enzymes in detail. So in the restriction enzyme, the two enzymes responsible for restricting the growth of bacteriophage in Escherichia coli were isolated in the year 1963. One was the enzyme which added methyl groups to DNA, while the other cut DNA. Okay, both the enzymes are isolated in the year 1963. The enzyme which cut the DNA, they are referred to as restriction endonuclease. So what is a restriction endonuclease? It is an enzyme that cleaves the DNA into fragments at or near the recognition site within the molecule known as restriction site. Okay, it will not cut on its own. It will cut in a specific manner. Okay, so that's why those site which is going to recognize and it will cut the DNA. So based on their mode of action, restriction enzymes are classified into exonuclease and endonuclease. First, what is exonuclease? These enzymes will remove the nucleotides one at a time from the end of the DNA molecule. If it is going to remove the DNA from the end, okay, then it is called exonuclease. And example for exonuclease here they have given. And what are endonucleases? Endonucleases are nothing but it is going to cut the DNA or break the internal phosphodiester bonds. So it is going to make a cleavage in between the DNA molecule. Okay, so that's why it is called as endonucleases. Okay, there are several endonucleases. The examples are given. I'll tell you how to name these restriction enzymes. So with one example, EcoR1, in the upcoming slide, I'll tell you how these are given various names. First one, we are going to see restriction endonucleases. Otherwise, they are referred to as molecular scissor. Why they are referred to as molecular scissor? Since it is going to cut the DNA molecule, it is referred to as molecular scissors. So, these enzymes exist in many bacteria where they function as a part of their defense mechanism called restriction modification. system. So these enzymes are responsible, helpful for the bacteria. That is, if any other organism is going to enter into the bacteria, okay, it will act as a defense mechanism. This restriction enzyme will act as a defense mechanism, and it will in a sense it will kill the organism so that the bacteria will be made safe. Okay, and there are three main classes of restriction endonucleases: type 1, type 2 and type 3. So all these, they are going to differ by their mode of action. Only type 2 enzyme is preferred for use in recombinant DNA technology. Okay, so this can be an important objective type, which enzymes are preferred for rDNA technology. It is none other than the type 2 enzymes. Why they are important or why they are preferred? Because they can recognize and cut the DNA within a specific sequence, which typically consists of 4 to 8 base pairs. Okay, so this is the base pairs. Okay, so it can recognize a particular sequence. Okay, that's why type 2 enzyme is preferred. And examples of certain restriction endonucleases enzymes are given here. First, ALU1. Okay, so from where this restriction enzyme is taken? From which bacteria? It is taken from Orthobacter luteus. So this A is given from Orthobacter, LU is given from luteus, and 1 is the first enzyme which is extracted from this bacteria. So which sequence it is going to recognize? Okay, it is going to recognize the sequence AGCT TCGA in one strand. So DNA is a double stranded molecule. One strand runs from 5' to 3' direction. The other strand runs from this way. Okay, 3' to 5' direction. So it is going to recognize this particular sequence and it will cut the DNA, generating blunt end. Okay, so I'll tell you what is blunt end and sticky end. The next enzyme is BAMH1. Okay, it is from the bacteria Bacillus amyloliquefaciens. Okay, and it will also have a specific recognition sequence. Okay, so the sequence is given here and it will generate sticky ends. The next enzyme is EcoR1. It is from Escherichia coli and this is a recognition sequence and it will also generate sticky ends. Next is HAE3, Haemophilus aegypticus, and this is the recognition sequence of that particular enzyme and they also generate blunt end. And HIN3, Haemophilus influenza, the recognition sequence and the cut they make is sticky end. So the restriction enzyme HIN2 always cuts DNA molecules at a point of recognizing a specific sequence of 6 base pairs. This sequence is known as recognition sequence. Not only this particular enzyme, so in general they have given as the enzymes, the restriction endonucleases are going to recognize a particular sequence. Today more than 900 restriction enzymes have been isolated from over 230 strains of bacteria with different recognition sequences. Next, so the restriction endonucleases, how they are named, I told you, I'll explain. So they are named by a standard procedure. The first letter, it is going to indicate the genus name, followed by the first 2 letters of the species. Then comes the strain of the organism, and finally Roman numeral indicating the order of discovery. For example, in this case, EcoR1, E stands for Escherichia. So it is taken from the bacterium Escherichia. This is the genus name. So the first letter E. Then coli is the species name. So from the coli, they are going to take the first 2 letters of the species name. So they have taken CO. And there are different strain. Under the species itself, there will be different strain. Like that, out of that different strain, they have taken as R strain. So they have taken as, given as R. Okay. And it is the first endonuclease that to be discovered from that bacteria. So it is given as 1. So this is like order of discovery. Okay. Next. And it contains 2 different antibiotic resistance gene and the recognition site for several restriction enzyme. So I told you the restriction endonucleases will cut at a specific site. That site is called restriction site. And generally, what will be the restriction site for the restriction endonucleases? It is nothing but a palindromic sequence. Okay, so which means that the sequence in both the DNA strands at this site reads same in 5' to 3' direction and 3' to 5' direction. So example, Malayalam. So when it is read from this way to the other way, again it will be spelt as Malayalam, and even in the opposite way, again it will be spelt as Malayalam. So this is an example for palindromic sequence. And similarly, Madam is also a palindromic sequences which can be read from both the side. It will be having the same meaning. Okay. So similarly, the palindromic repeats is nothing but a symmetrical repeated sequence in DNA strands. So for example, if the strand is going to read as CATT, from 5' to 3', and again if you are reading from this side 5' to 3', there will be the same sequence. So you can verify here. So C, okay, A, TT, AT, TG. So it is same from 5' to the 3' direction, whatever it reads, and here also it will be reading the same from this direction from 5' to 3'. So this is referred to as the palindromic repeats. So these restriction endonucleases enzyme will recognize such a kind of the sequence. So here also you can see these are all the palindromic repeats. For example, AGCT 5' to 3'. Again you can see here this direction AGCT, and similarly you can see here GGCC. Again from if it reads from this direction GGCC. Similarly for all. So the restriction in endonucleases will recognize a specific site. Okay, that site is called the restriction site, and the restriction site will be a palindromic sequence or a palindromic repeat. Next, I told you we will also discuss about the cleavage. Okay, so the exact kind cleavage means how it cuts. The exact kind of cleavage produced by a restriction enzyme is important in the design of the gene cloning experiment. Some cleave both the strands of DNA through the center. Okay, exactly, it will be cutting at the center. So if it is going to cut at the center, so it will be having what kind of end is this? It is a blunt end. Okay, so otherwise referred to as flush end, and these are known as symmetric cuts. Okay, it is going to cut, the segments are going to be what? Symmetrically they are going to be the same. So this kind of cut, okay, is called as blunt cut, and the ends that are generated are said to be blunt ends. The cut is said to be symmetric cut. Okay, whereas on the other hand, some enzymes cut in a way producing protruding and receded ends. So here you can find protruding ends, and here this and all recessed ends. So this kind of cuts is referred to as sticky end or cohesive end, and the cut is called as staggered cut or asymmetric cut. Okay, so this will be very important when we are fusing the DNA molecule. Okay, so when we are fusing here, if you are going to insert our gene of interest, okay, it will be very easily, it will be able to join because it is of sticky end. It will be easily able to paste the DNA molecule. Okay, so that's it about the blunt end and sticky ends. So as I already told you, several enzymes are important for this recombinant DNA technology. One such enzyme is restriction enzymes. In that itself, we had two types, exonuclease, endonuclease, and for the genetic engineering, we are using restriction endonucleases. And out of that restriction endonucleases itself, we have three types, type 1, type 2, type 3, which is preferred one is type 2. The next important enzyme, okay, two other enzymes also play an important role. One is DNA ligase and the other one is alkaline phosphatase. So next we are going to see about the DNA ligase enzyme. So the DNA ligase enzyme serves as a paste enzyme. It joins the sugar and phosphate molecules of double-stranded DNA with 5' PO4 and a 3' OH in an adenosine triphosphate dependent reaction. And this enzyme is isolated from the T4 bacteriophage. So here in this diagram, you can see the action of the DNA ligase. So the DNA ligase, what is the exact reaction happening, okay, during the joining process of the DNA ligase, you can understand from this diagram. So what is the nature of its action? So here you can find this is 5' that phosphate group, okay, this is 3' OH end, okay, this is 5' phosphate end, this is the 3' OH end. So the action of the DNA ligase, how it will be serving as a pasting enzyme. So here you could see how it is going to serve by linking these two segments, okay. So they will be forming a new 3' to 5' phosphodiester bond. The next enzyme which is important for the genetic engineering is an alkaline phosphatase. So it is a DNA modifying enzyme and adds or removes specific phosphate group at 5' terminus of double stranded DNA. So it can add, okay, or it can remove specific phosphate group to the 5' terminus of double stranded DNA or single stranded DNA or even RNA, and thus it prevents self ligation, and this enzyme is purified from bacteria and calf intestine. So here again you could see in the diagram, because after the cut again it should not be joined, okay. So to prevent that, we will be adding the certain groups to the ends of the DNA, okay. So it will be adding certain phosphate groups to the ends of the DNA so that self ligation is avoided, and then we can ligate with the help of the foreign DNA, okay. So the first tool of genetic engineering, enzymes, is over. The second tool of genetic engineering, let's see about vectors. So another major component of gene cloning experiment is a vector such as a plasmid. A vector, what is a vector? It is a small DNA molecule that is going to be capable of self-replication. That is, it can replicate on its own. And this is used as a carrier. Carrier is nothing but it is going to carry the gene of interest. That's why it is called as a carrier. And transporter of the DNA fragment which is inserted into it for the gene cloning experiment. The vector is also called as cloning vehicle or cloning DNA. Vectors are of two types. One is cloning vector and the other one is expression vector. So what is cloning vector? It is used for cloning of DNA insert inside the suitable host cell. So it is used for cloning of DNA. Whereas expression vector, it is nothing but it is used to express the DNA. Okay. So that is the DNA that is going to be carried will be expressed so that a particular protein, whatever the DNA segment is responsible to make, that segment, that particular protein can be made to synthesize. So that's why it is called as expression vector. So this picture shows the formation of recombinant DNA. So we told no. So for the recombination to take place, we need a foreign DNA. This foreign DNA will be ligated to the plasmid. This plasmid will serve as a cloning vector or vehicle. So for that, we have to cleave this plasmid. And so this foreign DNA can be inserted into the vector. Okay, after it is inserted into the vector, okay, now this is referred to as rDNA. Okay, so this ligation, the cleavage, after the cleavage and after it is foreign DNA, it is going to get pasted by means of this DNA ligase enzyme and the gaps are sealed. Now we shall see about the properties of vectors. Vectors are able to replicate autonomously. Autonomously means on its own to produce multiple copies of them. So as it produces multiple copies of them, it also multiplies the DNA insert. Okay, and the vector, let's see the properties of vector. The vector should be small in size and of a low molecular weight, that is less than 10 kilo base pair in size, so that the entry or transfer into the host cell is easy. So it should be very small and molecular weight also should be very less. And the vector should contain an origin of replication so that it can independently replicate within the host cell. So it should have an origin from where it is going to replicate so that it can easily replicate. Then it should have a suitable marker. Okay, in the vector itself there should be a suitable marker. That is, for example, they have given antibiotic resistance. That is, this will make us to detect, okay, whichever cell is host cell is having the recombinant DNA, because that host cell alone we can select and we can multiply the host cell. Okay, so for that it should have an antibiotic resistance, and vector should have unique target site for insertion with the DNA insert, and should have the ability to integrate with the DNA insert, and it carries into the genome of the host cell. And most of the commonly used vectors have more than one restriction site, and these are called multiple cloning site or polylinker. Okay, so because if it can be recognized by more than one restriction, if it has more than one restriction site, then we can use a restriction enzyme of our own choice. So because it has got different restriction site, so we can use any of that particular restriction enzyme to cleave the vector so as to insert the gene of our own interest. So the features that are required, so we will see it in detail. First, I told you the vector should have an origin of replication. Okay, so it is shortly referred to as ORI sequence. This is a sequence where the replication will start. So here you can see, so this is the origin of replication sequence. So this is the sequence from where the replication is going to start. And the piece of DNA, when linked to this sequence, can be made to replicate within the host cell. So when we are linking the foreign DNA, so we have to see that we are linking along with the origin of replication, so that, okay, the insert, that is the foreign DNA, can also replicate when it is inserted into the host cell. The second one, it should have a selectable marker. Okay, so selectable marker is nothing but, for example, antibiotic resistance. So if it is having a selectable marker, we can identify, okay, by using the selectable marker, we can identify whichever cell has the recombinant DNA. Number 3, cloning sites. In order to link the alien DNA, alien is nothing but the foreign DNA, that is the gene of interest, the vector needs to have very few, preferably single recognition sites for the commonly used restriction enzyme. So for example, here these are all the recognition sites for all these recognition enzymes. Okay, for particular enzyme you can see the sequence, the recognition site is different. For example, HIN3, this is the recognition sequence. For EcoR1, this site. Okay, for SAL1, this one, BAMH1, like that. For the different restriction enzyme, it should have a unique recognition site. Next, we shall see the types of vector. Only very few types of vector are discussed here. One is in plasmid vector alone we are going to discuss. Okay, so we know what is a plasmid. Just now I told you they are nothing but the extra chromosomal self-replicating double-stranded circular DNA molecule. So it is found in bacterial cell. In addition to the bacterial chromosome, in addition to that it is found, so that's why it is called extra chromosomal. So apart from the chromosomal DNA, it will have some extra DNA. That extra DNA is referred to as plasmid. And plasmid, I have told you, it will contain a genetic information so that it can replicate on its own. It will not be depending upon the host machinery, that is, it will not be dependent upon this bacterial chromosome. This plasmid can replicate on its own. A very important plasmid, and the plasmid which is highly employed for rDNA technology is PBr322 plasmid. So this PBr322 plasmid is a reconstructed plasmid, okay, and this is most widely used as a cloning vector. This is a very important answer, and it contains 4361 base pairs. In PBr, this P stands for plasmid. B and R stands for the name of the scientist who developed this plasmid. Okay, they are none other than Bolivar and Rodriguez. These are the two scientists who have developed or who have constructed this plasmid. So P stands for plasmid and BR stands for the name of the scientist who have developed this plasmid. Then the number 322 is a number of plasmid developed from their laboratory. So 322nd plasmid, okay, that is developed from their laboratory, and it contains, so the plasmid should contain any selectable marker, no? So it is having antibiotic resistance genes. So antibiotic resistant genes for two different antibiotic. One is for ampicillin and the another one is for tetracycline. So AMPAR and TETAR. Okay, this R stands for, this capital R stands for resistance gene. Okay, ampicillin resistance and tetracycline resistance. Okay, in the next class we will be seeing about so how this is going to help. Okay, ampicillin resistance or tetracycline resistance gene, how is helpful for recognition of the transformed host cell, we will see in next class. So now you know that this PBr322 is a reconstructed plasmid, and how it got its name, and it has two different antibiotic resistance gene, and also it has got recognition site for different restriction enzymes. For example, HIN3, EcoR1, BAMH1, SAL1, PVU2, PST1, CLA1. So these are the different restriction in recognition site for these different restriction enzymes, and it also has ORI. ORI is nothing but origin of replication site it have. Next, ROP. So here you can find ROP. This ROP codes for the proteins that are involved in the replication of the plasmid. So whenever you are asked this PBr322, you have to draw this diagram also. The next vector we are going to see is TI plasmid. It is nothing but tumor inducing plasmid. This plasmid is found in the bacteria called Agrobacterium tumefaciens. So this bacteria is responsible for inducing tumor, that is producing tumor in several dicot plant. Okay, so this bacteria can go into the plants and it can induce the tumor in those plants. The plasmid carries a transfer gene TRA, which help to transfer tDNA from one bacterium to other bacterial or plant cell. And also it has ONC gene for oncogenicity, origin of replication, and INC gene for incompatibility. This tDNA of TI plasmid is stably integrated with the plant DNA. So we can use this TI plasmid, we can remove that gene that is responsible for introducing the tumor. We can remove that gene alone, and in that place we can insert our gene of interest. Okay, now it will be carrying our gene of interest and it will not be having any tumorous property, and this Agrobacterium plasmid can be used to introduce the gene of interest into the plants, because this bacterium can get into the plants. Okay, so this can be used as a suitable vector for carrying desirable traits into plants. So in this video, we have seen about genetic engineering and tools of genetic engineering. Under tools of genetic engineering, we have three tools. One is enzyme, number 2 is about vector, and number 3 about host. So we have seen about the enzymes and also about the vectors. So in the next class, we shall see about the host. Thank you.